Hey y'all, Kevin here, one last time, and I don't know, I feel a little emotional about this actually. It's a little weird. Um, but in this video, I am just going to cover a couple of things that you might think about as we close out the semester and ways that you can build on what we have talked about, what we've learned about, and I don't know, just some general reflections. So, no like material that's going to be, in any way tested or, finals are over, it's all good. But I wanted to at least send out one more video just kind of closing us out. So here we are. Um, so first off, I said this in the last set of videos around the final project, but y'all have learned a lot. When I put this class together, it was kind of up to me, like what I included and what I didn't include. And through the years, I've done a couple of different sort of, I don't know, approaches to that. And I don't know, there are other ways to learn about web development, but my approach is honestly to throw a lot at you and get you like just a little bit under the surface for a lot of different topics rather than diving deep into any particular topic. And I do that intentionally because not everybody is interested in the same things. And so if I just choose one and then go really deep into that one concept, then, half the people are going to be like, yeah, I don't like this. Um, so I don't know, for example, some people love CSS and like they love like fiddling with it and like one pixel to the left or one to the right. And that is fun for them. Other people hate that. And same thing for pretty much every week that we had here. And so my hope is generally that you found something that you liked and was interesting, or at least kind of fun while you were doing it. Um, so anyway, you learned a lot. Here's just a like not exhaustive list of some of the things that we covered. We started way, 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 way back in week one where we played around with website builders. So I don't know if your Spotify ads are the same as mine, but like when I'm listening to a podcast, like the number one ad I get is for Squarespace, and it's like you can make a website with Squarespace, and sure you can. And so you played around with that. You also learned a lot about coding, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Those are the foundational languages of web development. Pretty much every website uses those three languages. Um, and you got quite a bit of practice with all three. You also learned about Flexbox, which is a specific CSS sort of set of properties around layout, and that's like, I don't know, I I don't have facts to back this up, but I would say like the most popular way to lay out a website if you're using vanilla CSS. You also learned about JavaScript libraries. We looked at Bootstrap, which is supposedly the number one most popular JavaScript library. I actually believe them when they say that. You also learned about P5.js, which is my personal favorite JavaScript library. It's a little different. It lets you get a little more creative and sort of play around with animations, visualizations, things like that. But most importantly, you learned about the general concept of JavaScript libraries, which is pulling in code that other people wrote into your website, into your code. Um, and there are, I don't know, probably millions of JavaScript libraries out there. I don't, have a number in front of me, but I would not be surprised if it was that big. And the knowledge that if you have an idea, there's probably a JavaScript library that does it, I think that takes you pretty far. Um, you also learned about if statements and for loops, which is a computer science concept or group of concepts called control flow. And so if you take a like software engineering class like from the computer science department, that's actually one of the first things you learn about is like if statements, for loops, like control flow. You control the flow of your program. I actually didn't even write this down, but you also learned about variables, which is another really foundational concept in computer science, and functions. I should have put those in the slide. You also learned about objects and arrays. These are some of the foundational data structures, which is another computer science term that is prevalent and like important in computer science. And you dipped your toes into that. You also learned towards the end about design and AI. Well, I don't know how good of a job I did at teaching design, but just thinking about design from Logan's perspective and just sort of being intentional about noticing things. Again, I think that takes you really far in the design space. Um, and towards the end, we had a week on AI where y'all tried AI. I'll come back to AI in a minute, I think. But anyway, my point is there was a lot this semester, even though it was an online class and it's a gen ed, it's not really for any major credit. Um, it was still a lot of concepts that were probably new to most folks. So take a second to pat yourself on the back because it was a lot, and here we are at the finish line. So some takeaways that I hope y'all have gotten by now is at its core, coding and web development specifically, they're not magic. And so there's this sort of, I don't know, like cultural myth of like the lone hacker in their basement, like inventing a new thing and making billions of dollars. And sure, but at the end of the day, it's code. It's not magic. Um, and I hope that that sort of demystifies some of what we look at every single day. Next time you look at a website or an app or, really anything computational, it's not magic, it's code. And you know how to code. Um, and at a high level, the way that every single person codes is you start with a goal, you research the goal, you look it up on your favorite search engine, and you try something out, you copy paste, and it gives you an error. So you debug it, you get really mad, you walk away. While you're away, like the next day, you're taking a shower and you're like, oh, that's what I need to do. Like, if you felt that feeling, congratulations, you are a programmer. Um, and that applies pretty broadly. We focused on developing websites in this class, but I've been coding for 20 years. I'm a professional software engineer at Google. That happens to me all the time. And now you know what that feels like. And so, I don't know, the next time you're looking at an article that's like the algorithm is blah blah blah, it's just code, and it's written by humans, and it's not a magical thing that you don't have access to, that you can't understand. You can understand it. You do understand it if you've made it to the end of this class. um, the other thing that I hope you take away is that you have options. And so let's say you want to build a website. Now you know how to do that. And there are many options within that realm. And we used a pretty specific workflow just because I wanted to at least say, like, hey, start with this. So we use NeoCities. There are many other web hosts out there. I like NeoCities because it has an editor built in, but if you go back in the earlier weeks, I posted something about local files, and you can develop your websites on your actual computer. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. In fact, that's how a lot of people do it. Um, and once you have an HTML file, all you need to do is find a web host. You can type that into your favorite search engine and like free web host. Um, and there are a bunch of options. Same thing with like libraries. So we learned about Bootstrap, and we sort of had, as much of a conversation as we can in an online class. But did you like using Bootstrap, or did you prefer using, developing your own CSS? And there's not really a right or wrong answer to that. It's personal preference. And some people like having a, I don't know, set of components to rely on. Other people find that restricting and would prefer to do it themselves. And both are fine. And it's up to you to decide like where you fall on that spectrum. Um, Same thing with AI. I will come back to AI again. But it's a choice. If you want to use AI, it's there. It's free for students. And there are reasons for that, but it's there. You can choose to use it, or you can choose to do it yourself. And there are trade-offs. There are pros and cons, but at the end of the day, it's your decision. And I hope that this class helped you make that decision. And I'm not even saying like which direction I think you should choose. Well, I probably will in a couple slides, but um, all of these are choices. And I think for a lot of folks, before they started this class, they had no idea what code was. Like, how do you even build a website? I have no idea. And now you know that you have options. Do I want to use a website builder? Do I want to code it? Where do I want to host it? What libraries do I want to use? How much do I want to use AI? From not at all the way up to like vibe coding, where AI is doing all the work. And last and not least, it's like, I don't know, 3 words with a dot. You can code. You have been coding. And however you have done that, however you've approached it, at the end of the day, y'all have been making websites. And to me, that's what this class is all about. Um, Especially if you started this with no prior knowledge, that's cool as heck to me. Like going from like, how do you even do anything to here's a website, I put it out on the internet, here's a link. That's so cool. Um, so those are some takeaways, and I'll let you decide what your own takeaways are. But if you enjoyed this class, or aspects of this class, here are some things that you can try next. So at the end of the day, at the end of the semester, you can make websites, and what you do with that is up to you. Which is one of the things I love about coding and web development is everyone will take that in a slightly different way. So a really common thing is to make like a custom homepage. So this is a little embarrassing, but for example, let's see. I have a personal webpage. It's kevinworkman.com. I'm not saying it's the best web page on the planet. In fact, I need to update it. It's actually pretty outdated now. I update it like roughly once a year when I get especially motivated, but it's a sort of collection of just like who I am and what are some links that I think are cool, what are some like things I've done. Here's like some pictures I've taken. I embedded something from a photo host, and it's a mix, right? It's a mix of stuff I've hand coded and me using libraries. Like this is a thing I copy pasted from the photo host themselves. And the thing in the background, the animation in the background, that's a P5JS sketch. That's, it's a sketch that's sized to the size of the window and shows a little animation. And it's mine, I think is the point. Like it's not a Facebook page, it's not an Instagram profile, it's not, whatever, TikTok or LinkedIn. It's entirely mine. And again, I'm not saying it's the best page in the world, but no one else is telling me the rules for what to put in here. It's up to me. And so a common thing is to have, a personal homepage like yourname.com. And, we didn't actually get into custom URLs, but type that into your favorite search engine and you'll be able to figure it out with that system that we put in place of research, try it out, debug it. So that's custom homepages. You can also go a little bit more professional. So you can have a professional portfolio page. For me, that's kind of happycoding.io. Like that's kind of a big collection of like my projects that I've done and, blog posts and whatnot. But you can make a professional portfolio page kind of no matter what you do, like what your major is or what career you plan on having. Like you can make a website that it's the homepage is here's a list of all of my projects, and you can click one and learn more about that project. That can be stuff you've done in your major, stuff you've done at work, stuff you've done for fun. And the idea is you make that web page and you put it on your resume, and that goes a long way. I know that it's hard for college students right now. The economy is what it is. It's hard to get a job right now, so you can set yourself apart just a little bit by having a web page. It's yourname.com, and it's here I am. Here's my professional, like what I offer, what I care about, what I'm interested in, and you know how to do that now. Like I said earlier, we have been using NeoCities because I like that they have an editor and I just like their general vibe. There are many, many, many other web hosts out there. The one I use, actually, like personally and professionally, is GitHub Pages. So, you can type that into your search engine, GitHub Pages, and it's just another way to host a website. Here's like a quick start, an overview. You know how to read documentation now, so you know how to do that. So you're not limited to NeoCities, although NeoCities will take you pretty far. So you can use things like GitHub Pages. Um, there's also a bunch of fun stuff out there. So January is coming up. It's currently December 12th. January is an event that happens in January every year, and it's around generative code, and it's the kind of stuff we were doing in P5, P5.js, where you wrote code that created something, that created a sketch or an animation. And I really love January. If I was kind of, I don't know, I've done it a few times. I might do it again. But if I was still like kind of learning about code, like getting my feet wet, especially if you enjoyed the P5.js project, then check it out. It's january.art. So it's kind of at a blend of like, coding and art, which is also where P5 lives. So every day in January, there's a prompt and they show them ahead of time so you can think about it. So for example, on January 1st, if you make a P5.js sketch around draw lines only where there is no space, you could do that. Maybe it would look interesting. And you can post that on like social media, on Instagram, on TikTok, on, wherever the kids are hanging out these days with hashtag January, and other people will check it out. You can also check out other people's projects and stuff. Um, and so there's a lot of really interesting things here, like illustrate an Escher staircase that's safe for toddlers and obeys gravity. Like an Escher staircase is this famous painting that you've probably seen a million times. It's like the forever staircase. Um, and I love that prompt because what the heck does that even mean? It's this thing. Um, and that's a prompt. Safe for toddlers and obeys gravity. Like what? And it's supposed to be a little silly, a little ridiculous, a little fun. So how would you create a P5 sketch that plays around with that? I don't know. That's a thing you can try. Um, on the more, I don't know, serious side, you can also think about getting a CS minor. And so if I look at the requirements for a computer science minor at Millersville University, you have to take one, two, three, four, five classes. And one of those classes is this one, the one that you just took. This is the old name for it. Internet programming was the old name. We changed it to web development. So you have so far done 20% of a CS minor. And so if you choose to take four more classes, one, two, three, four, you will graduate with a CS minor. So if you enjoyed coding, especially if you enjoyed like the JavaScript aspects where we got into if statements, for loops, arrays, objects, the more like, I don't know, software engineering topics, then consider doing this. Consider talking to your advisor or talking to someone in the CS department about what this would mean. And it's doable. It's a thing that you have made progress on even without knowing it. Um, so those are some potential next steps you can take. So if I think about my reflections and like, I'll say, if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you are like relatively interested in what I'm saying. I'm not offended if you're not still watching, but you wouldn't know it anyway. So this is a little self-indulgent, but hopefully it's at least a little bit interesting for folks. In my brain, a good classroom environment, which is, a little silly when talking about an online class, but it is kind of a relationship, a dialogue. And so I made y'all fill out surveys every single week. So here's like my reflections. Um, so first off, I love seeing your projects. It's why I teach this class. They bring me so much joy seeing the projects every week where everybody takes it in a slightly different direction, where we all start from the same sort of like prompt, and then folks go in different directions, whatever felt interesting to them. And I love that. It like brings me so much joy. It's why I teach this class. So thank you for submitting those, for spending the time on creating them, debugging them, fighting against the code, getting a millionaires, looking it up on all the websites. And I seriously appreciate that effort. And I love seeing them. I also really appreciate everyone who asked a question. Whether that was over email or office hours, if you reached out to me and asked a question, thank you. That like makes my day, my week, my life. It's again why I do this. If I just wanted to put out a bunch of like, here's how you make a website videos, like I could do that without teaching. It would be a lot easier. But it's the human interaction. It's the one-to-one, even if it's just over email or just over a Zoom call. It's there's a human being on the other side of the screen, and that interaction, like it fills me with energy, and I love it. So thank you. Um, the other thing that I like have to reflect on is the role of artificial intelligence, AI, in education, in life, in work. And what I will say, again, like if you're watching this, I'm assuming that you are like, I don't know, not completely bored of my ramblings, but um, as a teacher, it's tricky. It's I don't have a like definitive answer to how I should approach AI. And so I have taught this class a bunch of times. Last year, roughly, I'd say 25% of students were just copy pasting the assignments into ChatGPT or whatever AI tool, and then copy pasting back. And, you know, it is what it is, kind of. And so this year, I had a goal of I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to find an answer to that. And I sat down many, many, many times to think about it and write it out. And I actually got pretty far. My whole plan was to frame coding as a craft, and similar to woodworking, where when you when you need a table, you have options. You can go to Target and buy a table. It's going to be cheap and everyone's going to have the same table, and maybe that's fine. Or you could go to like a local woodworker and or like custom order a table, and it'll be more expensive, but it will be custom. It'll be yours. You'll be the only person on the planet to have that table. Or you can start watching YouTube videos on woodworking and make your own table. I actually did that. I did that earlier this year. I took a woodworking class and I made the worst table on the planet. Um, and maybe it won't be the best table, but it'll be yours. You will have learned like the underlying concepts of a table. Turns out it's more than just four legs and a surface. It's, there's wood science involved, and it's really interesting. Um, but it's choice, and sometimes the right choice is to get the target table. Sometimes the right choice is to go down the rabbit hole and learn it yourself. And I feel like coding is the same. And so that's the metaphor I was trying to use. My plan was to write a book, a textbook, and put it out as a website, really, and have that be the curriculum of the class. And at the end of the day, honestly, I just felt like, who is this for? I was really interested in it, but students who are signing up for this as a gen ed online class, like, do they really want to get into that like metaphor? Is that helping people? I don't know. So I ended up teaching this class mostly the same way I always have. Um, and this time around, roughly 50% of students, I think, were just copy pasting the assignments from D2L into ChatGPT or whatever, Gemini or, whatever tool. and then copy pasting the results back. And that's tricky. I don't know if that is okay. Um, I, I honestly don't know. If you are creating a website, if you are checking the boxes of the assignment, is it okay if you're using AI? I still don't know the answer to that. However, what I will say is folks doing that, they aren't learning the underlying concepts. And I understand this is a gen ed class. I have no ill will. I don't hold it against anybody. I know this is not everybody's highest priority week to week. Um, so maybe it wasn't your goal to learn the underlying concepts of, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. But I guess what I'll say is I hope that for the classes that are your major, the classes that you are interested in, I hope that you find the balance between using AI and doing yourself. Um, and again, I say that with empathy. I'm not like, you're naughty for cheating. Like, I don't think it's that. In fact, I think one of the concerns I have about AI is I think that most people using it aren't trying to cheat. I think that most people using it are trying to learn. Um, and so I don't know, sort of scary part or I don't know, complicated part is using AI feels like learning. And so if you type into ChatGPT or, whatever tool, build me a website that does blah 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 that has, this heading and this content, ChatGPT will give you that website and you will look at it and you'll say, "Yep, that looks good. That looks like HTML. Oh yeah, that's CSS. I kind of remember that." And that will feel like you are using the concepts that we learned about in class. It will feel like learning. However, learning kind of requires struggling and like the frustration that you feel when you are staring at a problem and you're just not getting it and you're having to try a bunch of different things. You have 700 tabs open and you're just like, why doesn't this work? And then you have this moment where you say, aha, the light bulb goes off and you something clicks in your brain. And it's a beautiful moment. It's like every teacher's favorite thing when they see that in a student. And the the scary part of AI is AI takes that away. AI is a button that says do this for me, and I don't blame anyone who uses that button because the incentive systems that are in place in current education, mostly grades and timelines, um, y'all have too much to do. And here's a button that is constantly advertised to you that says, I will do your assignment for you. And don't worry, this counts as learning. Um, but is it? And again, I'll sort of circle back to as you graduate, as you look for jobs, as you fill out a resume with here are my skills, if you have relied too heavily on AI for those skills, when you are actually tested for that, not in a test like in school, but like in a job interview, uh, on the job, if your boss comes to you and says, do this, and you can't do it without AI, how's that going to go? Is Are companies hiring people who will just use AI compared to just like getting their current employees to use AI so that they don't have to hire a new person? So having skills that AI can't do is very important right now. And all right, that's enough of my soapbox. Especially because like anybody who was using AI like that in this class is probably not watching this video. So But I think deeply about all this stuff because I have empathy for y'all. It's really hard to be a student for many reasons. AI is one of them. The economy is another. The general state of the world. And so I don't know. Go into all of that with your eyes open, make intentional choices, and set yourself up for success. All right, soapbox done. Um, the last thing I'll say here is kind of related to my giant soapbox is I actually don't know what the future of this class is. The sort of unofficial official policy of the college of most colleges actually is AI is here and it can do most college assignments. And so most colleges, most classes have moved to a model where they are relying less on take home projects, on tests, on take home projects. So they're relying more heavily on like in class tests, quizzes, things that a teacher can observe and monitor and kind of make sure that no one has their phone out looking at ChatGPT or Gemini. And that's, it is what it is. But you know, that won't work for me. I live in Oregon. I teach in Pennsylvania. I can't be there physically. Um, and I something about that just feels off. Like for me, the joy of coding, the joy of like web development is those, I don't know, kind of moments or like for me it's usually at nighttime, but those times where you are sort of in it, you have an idea, you're excited about it, you're maybe that's not even fun, but it's like your brain is activated and you're just like you tune out the rest of the world. You put on some lo-fi hip hop beats or something and you're just like in it. You're coding and you're seeing what you're creating and there it is and you refresh and oh cool, that's working. That's awesome. And you can't really get that in a classroom. And so I have mixed feelings. Is it right to teach in that sort of artificial environment? I don't know. But it kind of doesn't matter because I can't do it anyway. So I don't know what the future of this class is. I'm pretty much the only person who teaches it, and I've asked my bosses to give me next year off. I don't know if I'll come back, honestly. I'm not sure. Um, and the other way to teach it is to lean in and say, everyone is using AI. You have to use AI in this class. And now that you're using AI, now I'm going to ramp it up. I'm going to make the assignments more complicated, more involved. So you're not just copy pasting. There has to be a back and forth. And, first of all, like it's just a lot of work to overhaul a bunch of assignments to make them that way. But more importantly, not everyone wants to use AI. Like roughly half of you expressed like pretty severe displeasure with the week where you had to use AI. And I think that's fair. I think it's totally fair to say, I know AI is a thing, but I don't want to use it. And so the option of, oh yeah, just add AI to your class, which is like what I hear all the time. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. So anyway, those are my reflections. I kind of leave it with uncertainty because that is honestly how I'm feeling. But, everyone has to sort of decide where they fall on all of the spectrums. Um, okay, so wrapping this up, keep in touch. That was a weird segue, kind of a downer thing into yay, let's be friends. But I think this stuff is interesting, so that's why I reflect on it so deeply. But um, I'd love to keep in touch. Like I said, I am taking next year off, which means I probably won't monitor my school email. I have too many emails to monitor, and I just close the tab for a while and don't look at it. So if you want to reach out to me, that's my personal email. It's kevinaworkman@gmail.com. My middle initial is A, so it's kevinaworkman@gmail. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'll accept whatever they call them, friend requests or connections or whatever. I almost never log into LinkedIn. So if you connect to me and I take like a month and a half to respond, it's not personal. I just hate LinkedIn, so I never log in. But when I do, and I see like a student sort of reaching out, like I don't know, I love that. So either way, keep in touch, especially if you do some of these next steps. If you create your custom homepage, please send it to me. I would love to see it. If you participate in January, please send me your creations. I again love it. If you take a CS minor, hit me up and just be like, hey, I'm doing this. I love that stuff. So you will never be burdening me. You will make my day if you send me an email with like a link to your homepage or January project or like, hey, I'm taking 161 in computer science. Love it. Um, so yeah, that's kind of it. Wrapping up. Thank you. I know that everyone takes online classes for different reasons. Not everyone is like, oh my God, I want to learn about HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and it's the most important thing to me. I know what this is, and I embrace that actually. So whatever your relationship with this class was, thank you. Um, and for the folks who are still watching, you're probably the folks who are the most engaged. So especially thank you. If you ever reached out to me, thank you for asking questions, signing up for office hours. And even if you never reached out to me, but you submitted projects, thank you. They make my life. I love it, which is why I'm so like torn on like, if I don't teach, I lose that. So again, yeah, that's kind of it. Thank you for a interesting semester, a fun semester, a challenging semester, and I guess for the last time, happy coding.